Thanks for tuning in to the Ourlads Football Radio Network as we preview Week 3 in the NFL with several key games to keep an eye on, including Deshaun Watson's first big test as a rookie when Houston travels to New England to face the defending champs. Speaking of tests, Matthew Stafford and the Lions for real? Well, we're going to find that out this week when they host Atlanta. We'll discuss those two games and all the rest, including key injuries, trends, and some picks as the OFN on PSN starts right now. All right, so it is a Thursday, the 21st of September, 2017, and I'm your host, Greg DePalma. We've got another good NFL show for you today. I've got an interesting way to kick things off. We'll go through every game, though, in just a little bit and give you all that information that I just spoke about on the promo as far as what we can do to get you ready for the game. But let's introduce my co-host to the show. He's an independent sports columnist and exclusive handicapper at VegasInsider.com, Tony Mejia. Tony, I'm sure you're doing a lot better this week than last week's post-hurricane madness.
Yes, we're situated, so that's great. And obviously more prepared, so you can kind of have a better opinion of injury reports and gathering information when you're in centrally located as opposed to running around the state.
Yeah.
Seeking shelter.
Yeah, it's not that's a very, very difficult situation to be in. We've all been in it if we've lived in South Florida or in Florida in general. So, I was reading this. I don't know if you had an opportunity to notice it and how much research you were able to get through today, but I was reading this article from Cherry and Williams of Pro Football Talk, wrote this story about Richard Sherman and NFL injury reports and gambling. And the Seahawks, and basically it goes like this. Richard Sherman, who was listed as questionable last week with a hamstring injury, played every snap, though, prompting him again to question the reason for the league's injury reports. And Sherman says, I guess from what I understand, the rules are for gamblers, for Vegas to make sure the odds and everything are what they are supposed to be, which is apparently what the league is concerned about when talking about injuries and things like that. In a conversation with Bob Condata of the Seattle Times. So maybe someone should look into that, because I thought we weren't a gambling league over against all those things. But our injury report is specifically to make our gamblers get their odds right. And he also blames fantasy football, saying fantasy football, oh my God, they're almost as bad as gamblers. So I guess when I read this, Tony, the first thing that popped into my head was, is this article from 2017 or 2007? I mean, is Richard Sherman just waking up to this right now? I mean, what bubble is he in?
I don't think so, because that guy's smart. He went to Stanford. I think he's trying to expose the hypocrisy to people who aren't. Because you know what? We're aware of it. This is old news. But there are people that in the sports world, in the industry of media, that this is news to them. And it's funny, because I have seen both sides of it and the news gathering aspect of it. And now what I currently do, which is analysis and handicapping and, God forbid, dealing with gambling and getting my hands dirty with that when it's a billion-dollar industry. I think the Pollyanna aspect of it is kind of going by the wayside. But at the same time, this is news to a lot of people.
I've actually been more surprised how, maybe it started even a couple of years ago or last year, I think, was it 2 years ago with DraftKings, with all those crazy commercials, and everybody, then there was the whole talk about, come on, it's gambling. Everybody knows it's gambling. And all of a sudden then they took all those ads off the air. And when I watch NASCAR, a lot of times before races, they're talking about odds. They're giving picks. They do the same thing in golf. I hear it in tennis. And I'm just bringing those three sports up because it's not just football. But this just shows you that nowadays, if you do pay attention, you watch these shows, especially before the events begin or the matches begin or the races begin, they're talking about gambling, they're talking about odds, and they're talking about picks. These are the broadcasters, the national broadcasters. I'm actually more surprised about that than anything.
Yeah, God bless Brent Musburger. He's been doing it for decades.
Jimmy the Greek.
And great. Yeah. To me, it's a way to increase your visibility. The NFL has been profiting on this for decades. They just, for whatever reason, want to have a cloak of transparency in terms of this is us and that's that. Whereas the NBA and Adam Silver recognizes that his league is growing in popularity because fantasy basketball got on the same level as fantasy baseball there. And, the fact that sport is so attractive to watch and over in 2 hours, that's what a lot of people don't talk about. Yes, we have marketable stars that you get to know their faces because you're not wearing helmets, but also because you can profit on them. It's what it is. People enjoy what they enjoy. And, to get back to the original point, no, I don't think Richard Sherman is stuck in 2007. I just think he wants people to have these conversations and wonder aloud why the NFL thinks we're all idiots.
Yeah, those radical, crazy guys in Seattle, Michael Bennett, Richard Sherman, boy, I just go and hang out with those guys. They could really educate me. I wish I could be just like them. But look, it's football. And that's the thing, though. A lot of these guys, the superstars, are the ones that talk because they can afford to. Nobody wants to hear this political stuff. Nobody wants to hear the gambling stuff. We know it, and I hear where you're coming from. I'm just using the perspective of Richard because he's trying to make, which is really more like not on his behalf a political point, but he's trying to make a point in general about something that really isn't about sports. Because he's even saying that this isn't about sports, it's about gambling. Okay, we'll find
I
out.
think it's anti-league, though. I think it's anti-establishment. Being Roger
there you go.
Goodell,
that's true. That's a good.
That's what I think it is. I think it's, especially with Goodell set to become commissioner for well into the next decade. I think that there is a faction of players that are fed up with the way things currently are, and it's become petty. I think this is kind of petty. You know what I'm saying? He's known this forever, but he just wanted to fire off a bullet.
Well, hopefully we'll have football. What is the labor piece till 2021, I believe. So
yeah, 21.
Yeah, hopefully they'll get something done by. It's good this is happening now, then, as opposed to say in 2020. Because if this was going on in 2020, then it'd probably be no chance for them to have peace and something not go wrong. So they got enough time now to figure this out and to make sure in 3 years that nothing happens and we don't have one of those crazy interruptions. I was watching that 30 for 30 piece a week and a half ago regarding the Redskins and the Scabs, and that brought back memories. So definitely not the memories we want to bring back. So anyway, but that's a lot of what that's about over 20 years ago, right? So there's a lot of kids, teenagers that never experienced that before, and you don't want to experience
it. They should, and we should all get used to the bickering that we're going to see going forward, and hopefully, after they get all that nonsense out of the way, they'll meet, negotiate whatever is feasible for both sides, and we don't have an interruption. Because I don't think this league would do well post-interruption. I mean, people would miss it, but they might find something else.
Especially now, with the ratings down.
Exactly.
Yeah, not a good time. All right, let's get started as we always do with the Thursday night game. I'm sure nobody will be tuning in for this one unless you're on the West Coast. The Rams, the Niners. Rams right now are about a 3-point favorite. Their first road game of the year, but they don't have to leave the state of California for this one. A couple of interesting things here. First of all, the Niners have won 3 straight up and against the spread. The last 3 versus the Rams, all as dogs as they are tonight. And Carlos Hyde, who so far has got 169 yards on the season with a 7-yard average, is going to go up against a Ram defense that gave up 229 yards on the ground against the Redskins. You know what? First opportunity. Well, a good opportunity for the Niners to get their first win. I do think the Rams are a better team than the Niners. Division game, like the trend. It's a recent trend. We've talked about the recent ones, meaning more than the ones 5 years ago. I'm taking the Niners in this one, and maybe it's about time because you know what? They actually played pretty well last week, and their defense has actually played pretty well the first couple of weeks.
Yeah, I'm concerned with their health. To me, I think you have no issues in the secondary, obviously, with Eric Reed out, Jimmy Ward and Quisky Tart. The backups are coming questionable, so I think they'll play. They're coming in at not 100%, which if you're focused in on Todd Gurley, which they will be, could set up some big plays for Jared Goff, who's played well. So, the Rams, I think, are the better team, and the Niners have to shore up Carlos Hyde, because right now Brian Hoyer's not extending the field. He's settling short, and I think the chemistry with Pierre Garçon will be there earlier than anything else. But if the Rams can shore up defensively, and we'll see how Aaron Donald responds to short rest, to a short week after missing all of training camp, but he'll play. We might not see the Rams defense that got gashed thus far.
Yeah, and I also think what's probably affecting Hoyer in the passing game is they were counting on Marquise Goodwin, and I think the Bills fans are laughing their asses off because Marquise Goodwin can't catch anything. He's a track guy. That's all he is. He had a good preseason. Regular season starts, he drops everything. That's the reason the Bills got rid of him, and he's got a little bit of an injury history, and they don't have a true number two, and that's hurting them right now. And then, of course, the tight end situation, they're counting on a rookie. So they're right now a one-trick pony, but give them credit for them to be able to have Carlos Hyde with that rushing average when they don't have a passing game. That's something to build on. And again, the defense is something to build on. Also, keep an eye on Tremaine Johnson. I hear he's banged up too. He got injured a little bit last week. Not sure if he'll miss the game.
No, he's good. He cramped up, so he's been cleared to go. So that's good to go. That's good for the Rams, obviously.
Sure.
And we'll see if I agree with Hyde being able to move the ball. We'll see if they get that first offensive touchdown, because that's a chip on your shoulder that you're carrying in here for 2 games.
Yeah.
And we'll see how good the Rams are in the red zone.
And we're getting, a matter of fact, that's probably a running theme on this show, and that is some of the inept offense that some of these teams have had over the first 2 weeks. And because we've got a bunch of other teams that I'll be bringing up their total points scored after 2 weeks, and it's not pretty. Let's go to one of the top games on Sunday, and that's going to be a battle of undefeateds, Atlanta and Detroit. And Atlanta, of course, the defending NFC champs. Big win over Green Bay on prime time on Sunday night, even though the Packers were banged up. But the Falcons did what they had to do. Now they've got to follow up big Monday night game. They got to go on the road. So there's a little bit of that. But, they're a very good team. I still think they're the best team right now in the NFC. Still can't believe they're 12-1 to win the Super Bowl. I took them at 12-1. Look, get this. I took a 12-1 to win the Super Bowl with my first future play a few weeks ago. Then I took them last week because the Bear game wasn't a blowout, they went to 16-1. So I doubled down. And I can't believe, even though, again, the Packers were banged up, that they're still 12-1. I mean, what do the Falcons have to do to prove to everybody just how good they are? So you know what? That's an advantage for me. I might even take them and triple down on them at 12-1 this week. But for Detroit, this is really this is a huge test to find out, just where they are right now after a couple of nice wins.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to double down, it might as well be now, because they're number one in my power rankings, and if they win this game, they'll be 3-0. They'll probably look good if they win it in terms of point margin. So I think the Lions have been playing really good football, but at the same time banged up. And rookie Jared Davis looked like the real deal. They lose him for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Travis Swanson's backed up. Obviously, could harm the continuity on the offensive line. So. It should be a good one, though, and looking forward to see, because the Lions have surprised us thus far with their ability to have an offense that isn't predictable and isn't stuck on a 3rd and long with Matthew Stafford dropping back and throwing over receivers' heads.
Yeah,
so,
Abdullah
for them.
Abdullah had a good game last week, and you can blame the Giants, sure, but Detroit's defense did their job. Ansah had 3 sacks. He's their best defender. And the secondary is playing better this year for Detroit. They've got some talent back there. When you beat Arizona with what we've seen so far from Arizona this year, and they beat the Giants, I mean, both these teams could have been playoff teams, maybe still could be, but they're not looking good. And so is that just because of the schedule? And it could be. That's what happens early in the season, as you know, Tony. It's not baseball, of course, when I talk baseball on the baseball shows, I tell a lot of people April, May, June, July. Okay, August is time. Now we'll talk whether these teams are for real. But teams get so carried away in every sport, and football too. Sometimes it takes almost 6 to 8 games to find out how truly good a team is based on schedules.
Oh, there's no question about that. And the changes to how teams approach camp and the beginning of the season, really babying guys as they should through camp to make sure they're ready when the lights come on. It harms preparation.
Yes.
So kind of evens the playing field at least a little bit. And once we get to week 8 and guys build up their chemistry, then there's separation.
And Stafford, I've always been a Stafford fan, and I'm glad he got the big payday. I think he deserves it. I think he's deserved better in Detroit, no question about it. But what really I think makes him dangerous this year, especially when they get Taylor Decker back, because Greg Robinson doesn't really. And then you mentioned Swanson's injury. That's because look, the GM did a fabulous job coming over from New England and realizing what they had to do to get better, and he wanted a power game, so he brings in T.J. Lang, he brings in Ricky Wagner. We're going to run the ball a little bit more, just like you said. We have to give Matthew Stafford a little bit of a break there, so he's not just doing it all on his own. And now he's got 3 receivers. Look, Baldwin led them in touchdowns last year, but that was more of an indictment than anything because he was just more of a guy that was matched up well in the red zone. But Golladay is a rookie, and I get that. But at least with Golladay, with Ebram, and of course with Tate and Jones, and with Adula, if he could stay healthy, along with Riddick out of the backfield, this is probably the best group of weapons he's had. Now, he had Calvin Johnson, but he at least has a nice – he's got a little bit more variety in as far as his skill position talent than he's probably had ever.
Yeah, and we saw his evolution once he lost Calvin Johnson because he wasn't fixated on getting him the ball. So he spreads it around better. He's become a better quarterback. There's no question about that. He's run the ball really well this season. And you mentioned the offensive line woes. If Vic Beasley was playing this game, and obviously he's not because he's out of almost a month, I think Atlanta would be huge favorites, and you couldn't talk me out of it. Because he's not, we could see Detroit have a nice day offensively and hang in a shootout. No question.
All right. By the way, Detroit won both their games this year as dogs, short dogs. So let's keep that in mind as they're a 3-point dog here. But at Detroit, this going back, of course, to last year, because it didn't take place this year, whether you think this matters or not, the Lions have lost 4 straight covers against winning teams. This could be, though, a different season. Not so fixated on that trend as I would be others. All right, but I do like the Falcons. It's a short spread. It's a 3-point spread, which means the winner usually should win that cover. And as a Falcon backer, of course, I'm not going to go against them there. Houston and New England. And now this is a big point spread. I can get Houston with 14 here. I think I'm going to do that. They almost covered last year in that playoff game. Patriots were a 16-point favorite. It was an 18-point spread, even though it was not an 18-point game. That game was – Houston had the ball, I think, inside, the 5 early in the fourth quarter with a chance to march down the field and take the lead. That's how close the game was until the Patriots, broke it open late. And that was with Brock Osweiler. So Houston, they get Deshaun Watson. He's now a fixed quarterback there for a very long time. He showed his athleticism in the big touchdown run against the Bengals. Not a bad way to start your career, to go on the road and get a win. Give that offense and that team some life after that lackluster performance against the Jags on opening day. He's smart enough to know to throw the ball to DeAndre Hopkins. Threw the ball 13 times. He only completed 7, but he knew that's the guy to get the ball to. And I also like the fact that they got this Donta Foreman kid, the rookie from Texas, because he's giving Miller a real chance to take a seat and to give that team a little bit more balance. Because if Lamar Miller's a little bit more fresher, that should make him a little bit better of a back as well. Of course, the big issue with the Texans right now is still the fact that there's no Dwayne Brown.
Exactly. I mean, and you're talking about, if you're the Patriots, you've got to get a handle on defense.
Yes.
And this is the perfect team to go against. I mean, we know about the history of rookie quarterbacks against Belichick. And I think Watson's mobility make this interesting. But the fact that, they have issues at receiver and Dwayne Brown's still out, the offensive line can't protect. This is a situation where the Patriots defense better look good. And Hightower did practice Wednesday, probably will play. They'll get some of those banged-up players back, even though Gronk and Amendola are going to be questionable going into the weekend. So you don't know what to expect. And you really can't hang this spread either way, in my opinion, because you also know that for self-preservation reasons, Brady's going to want to get rid of that ball very quickly, and they're going to want him to. So we might get dumbed down offense, probably a lot of running games, a lot of conservative Patriot offense, given who the Texans have on that front.
Yeah, because the Patriots, they're a little bit banged up at receiver. Hogan's banged up. Gronk's banged up. Of course, Edelman's out for the year. Amendola, we don't know if he's going to play. Not to look, we know Brady will find a way, but still, this is a good defense. And J.J. Watt wasn't there last year in the playoff game. So, and Houston understands how big of a test this is for them as well. That's why 14 points, 14 points. Boy, that's just such a big number, and that has to be all about rookie quarterback, because Houston shouldn't be a 14-point dog to as good as the Patriots are. Houston's a good football team. 14 just tells me, like you said, it's Belichick against a rookie quarterback. That's probably giving him an additional 5 points.
Well, but it's also what we saw on Thursday night from the Texans. I mean, we had Watson break out a video game play, and the rest against the depleted Bengals offense, they couldn't do anything. And so they're going to be a factor defensively, but Tom Brady isn't Andy Dalton. And you got the Patriots at home. I think the number is well placed. It raised an eyebrow that it's this early in the season, and it's that big a number with a team that is a perennial playoff team coming into Foxborough. But because of the way they've exhibited little chance to move the football, that's what I'm saying. If the pass defense can't stop this team, and they've got serious issues.
Yeah, I'd like to. I don't know if you have probably something I should have asked you prep before the show. I would be interested to find out what the Patriots' number is in covering double-digit spreads over the last couple of years. Because we know this is also what this is about, is that everybody knows how good the Patriots are, and Vegas doesn't want you taking the Patriots. So they're doing everything they possibly can to get you to take Houston, because they just know. I mean, it's the Patriots. So and maybe even also, that 13.5 might be that number for a reason. But anyway, yes, good test for Houston though as well, and Deshaun Watson, and we'll see whether or not this is a typical Patriot blowout win and another disappointing performance by a team that I think a lot of people outside of New England, are hoping that there can be somebody that can give the Patriots a true test, because Houston's one of them. But it's early in the season, and at least Watson will get some experience in case he has to face the Patriots in playoffs.
At least we're not talking about Brady being washed up to 40 anymore. That took 2 games.
Yeah, that's just – I mean, I always –
It was out there. It was out there.
I tell the listeners this all the time. I try to let them know. Take down a note when you hear people say dumb things, analysts, writers, and then when you check the box – after it's proven that they're, idiots for saying what they say, just remember that. Say, okay, I know not to trust this guy again because that was just stupid. And it happens. I mean, you'd think that they would learn, and they don't. So Tom Brady will know when to retire. Tom Brady is not going to play a season and then he's going to look like, I don't know, a shell of himself during that season, and they're going to go 6-10. Brady is smart enough to know when it'll be time to hang it up. That's my opinion, knowing the guy. And when he hangs it up, he'll probably have a little bit left in the tank, but I think he's going to realize, look, I just can't do it anymore. And if I can't do it at my best, I'm not going to do it. And I think when you're that type of player and you're smart and you're and that type of competitive, even though you want to be there, you don't want to be there unless you really think you can do credit to your team and win a Super Bowl. And if you don't think you can do that, unless he's got a Denver Bronco type defense like Peyton Manning did, I don't think he's going to make a fool out of himself.
Yeah, no doubt. And he's been keeping himself, protected over the years and beating people with his brain for years. He'll do that for as long as he can, because there will be one day where he takes a hit that he shouldn't have because he held the ball a slight second too long, and then that's maybe the regression that people will be talking about, because he's as sharp as a tack.
By the way, the Patriots have played Houston 6 times since 2012. They've beaten them all 6 times, and they're 5-0-1 against the spread. So if you are thinking of taking Houston like I might, you might want to think twice about that. Okay, let's go to Seattle and Tennessee. And boy, here we go. Seattle scored 21 points in their first two games. And this offensive line is just absolutely awful. We've been saying it for years, and Seattle continues to do nothing about it. Of course, the fan injury we talked about a couple of weeks ago is definitely a big deal for them, which is really saying a whole lot about how bad that offensive line is. Their defense has kept them in the games, though, beating San Francisco in a close game, and also keeping them around in that Packer game on the road. They're a couple guys banged up, but nothing that would cause them to lose this game at Tennessee. I tell you what I'm looking at here. I kind of like Tennessee in this game. The only thing I don't like is actually Tennessee giving up the 2 or 3 points. That's kind of an issue I have. But here's something, some research I did myself. Seattle, when they've traveled to the southeast, and we know that is important when you're talking about the farthest northwest team in the league, in their last 4 games traveling to the southeast, they've lost all 4.
I mean, look, there's no question they're vulnerable in this game. I'm not touching it, and I think that the traditional bait would be give me the Seahawks plus the points. I don't care if you're playing in Indonesia. But
sure.
the fact is that, beyond that trend, which is actually a good trend and one that stands at the time, unlike many, the fact is you've seen it with your own eyes that this is a line that Russell Wilson really has to be sharp and elusive to succeed behind. And the Tennessee defense is no joke, and the Tennessee offensive line will open some holes. And that's a pretty good offense with Mariota potentially breaking off a big play, where it should be a tight game because the Seahawks aren't explosive right now. And Mariota could steal it late, no question.
Yeah, Corey Davis looks like he's going to miss time again. He's pretty much missed all the preseason, and now it looks like he's going to miss another game here. DeMarco Murray, the injury to his hamstring, not a team that probably misses him as much as other teams would because of Derrick Henry, who had a big game last week after Murray went out. So nothing to worry about. But I'm with you because I look at both situations. See, to me, again, even though I shouldn't worry because I preach this all the time, don't ever, especially the NFL as opposed to college football, I tell everybody, because over the years in the NFL, if you win games, you're going to cover. That's statistically 100% accurate. It doesn't happen all the time, but if you think that way 100% of the time, then you don't have to worry about it. You don't pick and choose when you think somebody's going to cover. You don't go, okay, I think they'll cover but lose. You don't do that, or vice versa. I think they'll win, but I don't think they'll cover. Just don't do that either. So that that's something I should probably. It's nothing that I'm looking at here. The thing that maybe it's a mental thing for me, not for me, but for the team, because I think this matters. Tennessee is a favorite here, and Seattle, as we all know, is the better franchise. So I think there is something to that when a franchise that's used to losing goes up against a winning franchise, and the losing franchise is the favorite. That bothers me.
Yeah, I mean, if it's an optical illusion, is what it is. So. But again, then come, you don't have to decide right now, but come Sunday, you want to bet on that game, that feeling in your gut better tell you Tennessee's going to pull this off.
Yeah.
Carroll's conservative as is, and he could leave this one out there. Especially on the road, I mean, they've shown the desire even to win 12-9 when they need to, just to make sure that Russell Wilson comes out unscathed. And this will be a game that will be up for grabs there in the fourth quarter.
Well, that's the thing. It may not be pretty, Seattle, like they did against San Francisco, and I know Tennessee's better than San Francisco, but Seattle has, as I just mentioned, a very good defense. And that defense can definitely cause problems for Tennessee if they can make them one-dimensional, and Mariota makes a few mistakes. He's still a young quarterback. So, yeah, not an easy game to call, and I agree with you, more than likely one to stay away from. Let's go to the Sunday night game, Oakland at Washington. And, I heard somebody reference this about a week ago when they was promoting this game about how the Redskins are a pretty bad national televised, I don't know if it's a home thing, but they're just not very good when they're on national TV, and maybe it is a home thing. Now, I didn't do the research on that. I just heard it, but that's not the reason that I'm taking Oakland in this one as a 3-point favorite. It's just that Oakland's a better team, and not that the Jet game had anything to do about anything. But get this, and here's another one I did on my own. The Raiders, and I did this because I knew from last year, and then I found out even more than I thought I'd find out. But the Raiders are 8-1 straight up, 9-0 against the spread the last 9 times they've played teams on the East Coast.
Yeah, that's a good line. I think Del Rio will have them ready. I thought that they, coasted against the Jets despite covering. So you should get a sharp effort from Washington, no question. I mean, in Washington, in Landover, no question. And this is also going to be a huge test for Kirk Cousins because we saw teams have been successful against the Raiders passing the ball. He could have a big day, and that'll be the great equalizer. Or Carr can come in and outplay him.
Yeah, I mean, so far this year, I think one of the things I like about the Raiders and why I might even add them to my future portfolio this week at 12-1 is because I'm starting to get a little bit more of confidence that they can do it because their defense is starting to play better than people thought they would. Because everybody, okay, yeah, the Raiders' defense is their weakness and they got some issues. But look, that secondary right now, you got Reggie Nelson and Carl Joseph. That could be one of the best duos back there. Definitely, probably the most underrated duo back there as far as safeties are concerned. And then you also have, of course, Khalil Mack, who's only one of the best defenders in the league. So the defense is I think good enough to win a championship the way they're playing so far this year. But it's early. Tennessee Jets. You need a lot more proof than that. And then the Redskins, who rushed for, as we mentioned before, 229 against the Rams, they better run the ball because right now, as you mentioned with Cousins, and we figured this was going to happen too with the situation with him getting used to his receivers, but he averaged 307 yards a game last year. He's only averaging 210 in his first 2 games, and they are running the ball. So they're going to have to run the ball, I think. It's going to take a while to get some chemistry going with those receivers. Even though Kelly's out, you got Perrine, you got Thompson. So you're going to see those guys get some carries. I just think this is one of those situations where, based on what I've seen the first couple of weeks, Raiders are clearly a better team. They play at Denver next week. They know how important this game is as well. It's national TV, Denver next week. See, if this was a Sunday game, I might be concerned about them looking ahead. But national TV, they're not going to fall asleep in this game knowing that the Broncos are next week. And I think the way that they're playing, I think the type of team they are, I have no problem giving up 3.
Yeah, it should be a fun one. Some people view this as a huge trap line. And either way you look at it, this is a little bit of a riddle. Either way you look at it, it's the Raiders getting respect when somebody says that.
Yeah, because, okay. Yeah, you're right. I was like, really? Some people thought this was a trap line. Okay, I didn't, but I guess everybody's got different feelings about different teams. And by the way, Washington, do you think this matters at all? The fact that the Redskins, first game East Coast, second game West Coast, third game East Coast, primetime TV. There's just a lot of stuff going on there, or you don't care about any of that stuff.
No, that definitely matters because it throws off your preparation. And this early in the season, you're still trying to get chemistry down. It matters at any point in the season, really, because then you're so banged up mid-season that travel wears on you. So, yes, that to me is something that it's not the end-all, be-all, but, yeah, you have to be aware of it.
And by the way, Carr's off to a great start. He's completing 75% of his passes, 492, 5 touchdowns, no picks. And not only do they have Crabtree, of course, and Cooper, but they also can go to both Richard and Patterson, who both made some big plays last week and will continue to make big plays. They got speed all over the place. They got a quarterback. They got one of the best offensive lines in football. So if that defense can just be average, league average, this team can actually win a championship this year. Let's go ahead and talk. By the way, is Josh Norman okay for this game? Do you know? Because I know there was a little issue with Norman, and I was getting conflicting reports on whether or not he was questionable or he'll be okay this week.
I mean, I know they think that on the Raiders side that Conley is going to be good to go, and I'm a big fan of his. I think he's going to be a difference maker. Once he beats his hamstring thing, he could be good. As from what I see on who'd you ask me about?
Josh Norman, Redskins corner? Yeah, because he's their top corner, Josh Norman.
I don't see him right now as far as questionable, so he should be good to go.
Okay. Let's go to the Monday night game, Dallas and Arizona. And Arizona lucky to be a 1-1 at this point. They're down 13-3 to the Colts with Jacoby Brissett. and they were able to come back, force overtime, win the game, and maybe save their season, especially considering that they're playing a Cowboy team right now that they've got issues. And big surprise that Ezekiel Elliott, my favorite player, is causing problems in that locker room. He's not hustling on the field. There's another big surprise after interceptions. That is not a good thing. You need to have good chemistry, the team playing together, a little bit of harmony. But look, this is Jerry Jones. This is what he wants. He talks preaches all the time about I've got the greatest character guys in the world when he's got the absolute worst next to the Bengals. So it's a fraud. It's propaganda Jerry Jones is playing on everybody. This is a bad locker room. They've got some good players and good guys like Prescott and such, but there's just too many bad seeds in that locker room, and that's the problem with them right now. And now it's coming to a head with Ezekiel Elliott and everything that's going on. I think it's a huge distraction, and that's why I actually think Arizona has a chance. I mean, other than that, if the Cowboys didn't take that major step back last week, this would be an easy one to call. But because they didn't, because they did take such a big step back, I actually think that this game is a toss-up. Cowboys 3.5-point favorite in this one. It actually could be a pretty ugly game. I think we could see a lot of crazy stuff happening, maybe a lot of turnovers, maybe that'll be a good thing for a Monday night.
I mean, who else didn't try hard last week was the Arizona Cardinals for about 2.5 quarters.
That's true.
I mean, the effort was not there. I was watching it in horror in that game for teaser purposes. And from the standpoint of energy level that you're supposed to bring to win a game like that, it was completely absent. And they were very lucky that Indianapolis is so terrible that they were able to get that back. So I'll get behind somebody by Monday, but at this point, I've got no idea. As far as Elliott goes, the character issues are unquestionable, but I just don't think he's ready to play this year because he had that hanging over his head. He looks overweight. You have to get mentally engaged to do the things that you need to do to be as successful as he's physically gifted. And once he gets at 100%, if he plays this whole year, he'll be fine by week 8 in the force. But right now, it's a dubious choice.
And then here's the other thing too, Prescott. We said in the beginning of the season, we see this all the time with rookies that actually play better than we think. Do they take a step back? That happens a lot. That's where sophomore slump comes from. Well, we're seeing signs. He completed 67% of his passes last year. This year, 2 games, 60. Last year, his yards per attempt were 8. This year, 5.7. Last year, he had 4 interceptions the entire season. He's already got 2. That's a problem. And you know what? Another personnel issue situation from an NFL team. We see it with Seattle with the offensive line. We could pick out a lot of teams that for some reason they ignore a specific position year in and year out. You know what the Dallas Cowboys have ignored for the last 3 or 4 years? Finding Dez Bryant, somebody else on the opposite side of him to take the pressure off. And for them to re-sign Terrence Williams and give him whatever they gave him, even if it's just $4 or $5 million, I think they gave him a year, it's like highway robbery. How dare a team with salary cap issues give Terrence Williams about $12 million over 3 years? Are they insane? The guy's terrible. And now, I mean, look at Dak Prescott. It's like Jason Witten's 20 years old. He's relying on Jason Witten so much because Williams stinks. Ezekiel Elliott can't run the ball right now, and Dez Bryant can't do it all.
Yeah, and he's also been facing, a situation where it's easier to run the ball. It's easier to throw when you've got
a running game.
Distance. And he's also faced 2 very good defensive lines. So, I think this is going to be a tough test too.
Arizona's pretty good defensively.
They are, and absolutely. And you have to go into an opposing stadium. So, this won't be easy.
And by the way, back-to-back West Coast games for the Cowboys, even though they're a Texas team. And by the way, I said this yesterday on the OFN show with Dan Shanka. You can't say anymore right now that the Cowboys have the best offensive line. They don't. Now they have 2 or 3 stars, but they have 2 terrible players right now. Collins cannot play right tackle, and Chaz Green is terrible. So that you don't have a great offensive line. You have three very good players. You can say that, and they have an above average offensive line with three really good ones and two terrible guys right now. I think Collins is a average player if he's playing guard, but he's a below average player when you slip him out to right tackle, and Green's awful. So that is another reason why the Cowboys offense is not humming right now. The offensive line is no longer the best in football. So people need to keep that in mind. Okay, let's go and stick with the NFC East. We talked about Washington. We talked about the Cowboys. Let's talk about the NFC East matchup. Giants at Philly. Philly favored by 6. And the Eagles have won 5 out of the last 6 against the Giants, both straight up and against the spread, with the last 3 games in that series decided by a total of each game, 3 points. And every game decided by 5 points. The last 3 games were decided by a total of 5 points each. Now, that's interesting because it's a 6-point spread. But I still think the Eagles are the way to go. I'd rather look at the 5-1 straight up and against the spread than look at what the exact score was, because again, I don't care about the spread. If I think the Eagles are going to win, I'm going to lay the 6. Eagles are clearly playing better than the Giants right now. Giants just have so many issues. Now, if Beckham all of a sudden has that second wind after his first game last week, I don't know. He looked fine last week, but
I didn't think so.
Well, at certain times when he was running the ball, but I wasn't fixated on him maybe as much as you were. I'm sure maybe he wasn't getting separation and things of that nature, which he would if he was 100% healthy. But if he does get that second wind, then okay, maybe that can open things up for the Giants. But I don't know if that can happen in a week.
Absolutely, and a short week at that. You're getting robbed on the line. There's no question. It opened at 6 for a reason, because of the short weekend, because the Giants happened to look so terrible on Monday that you were greeted on Tuesday with, all kinds of things. Now we got to see whether McAdoo gives up his play calling duties as an added wrinkle to this one, because he hinted at that being a possibility on Sunday, which, if you're the Eagles right now, you better take advantage of this turmoil, because this is a game you can't let get away. Now, whether you let it get away by, whether you win it and don't cover the 6 doesn't concern them, and I'd be concerned. That number is higher than it should be, with an Eagles team still trying to find itself. Watch the entire game against Kansas City. They had opportunities to go out and steal that game.
Sure.
And miss some plays. So it's a talented team. There's no question about that.
Yeah, I like the Eagle defense though. The Eagle defense, the secondary we talked about before, especially with some of the players that are even banged up right now besides Darby, but they've got a really good front 7, especially some of the pressure thanks to Jim Schwartz. They got to run the ball a little bit better. Wentz is averaging 320 a game. That's too much. They got to get a little bit more. Now they are trying to run it, but they got to get a little bit more out of the running game than they're getting right now to take all the pressure off of Wentz. But look, the Giants have done nothing. They scored 13 points in 2 games. Their leading rusher is Darkwa. He's got 31 total rushing yards. So that's just a mess. I just don't know if the Giants can put it all together in 1 week. But you know what? They are the more desperate team. They lose this game and maybe the season's over. 0-3. Not many teams can fight their way back from 0-3. But we'll see. It's a division game. It makes it that much more important. And by the way, it's the home opener for the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah, look, if the defensive line, which we were so fond of,
yes,
dismantles the Giants' offensive line, I think it doesn't matter. The sense of desperation and the 6 points that I'm saying are too much will be laughable because they'll win by 16 plus. But you got to take care of business, and yeah, I think it does add to it that it is Philly's home opener. That the emotion should be there.
All right, Tampa Bay and Minnesota, and the Bucs coming up their first game of the year. They forced 4 turnovers, including a pick 6 in the win against the Bears. Minnesota, meanwhile, it's all about Sam Bradford, and you can see the difference. And maybe the best thing for Sam Bradford was to prove to everybody how important he is, actually, to the Vikings fans. After I'm sure, I wonder if he's the right guy. And Bradford comes out as his best game of his career in their win against the Saints on Monday night to start the season. And there was a lot of hope. And then out of nowhere, a couple of days later, you hear this injury report. And you're like, what? Injury? For what? What the hell's wrong with Sam Bradford? And then you're figuring everybody's saying, it'll probably be okay. It'll be okay. It'll be okay. Sunday comes around. It's Case Keenum. And then all of a sudden, the Vikings do nothing. So that's the difference between Sam Bradford and Case Keenum. That's the difference on whether or not you even want to think of taking the Vikings. There is no line right now, and that's the way it should be. But that's what it is for me. I mean, if depending on whatever the line eventually gets to, because I can't even imagine with Keenum, the Bucs would be favored by more than 3 on the road. So if Bradford plays, I like the Vikings. If he doesn't, I like the Bucs.
No question. That's why there's no line on it. And look, last week that Pittsburgh line looked a little high, right?
Yes,
six
it
and
did.
a half.
And I was hoping. That's why I wanted to play Bradford. I wanted that line at 6.5 at Bradford. I was upset that he didn't play.
Yeah, skyrocketed near 9 double digits.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, let's go to the Saints and Carolina. And the one team that I had high hopes for that is not performing are the Saints, even though when you start off with Minnesota on the road and the Patriots at home, it's not going to be easy. I still think Drew Brees is all right. Fact is, as we talked about, they're going to need a guy like Brandon Coleman. At least he had a good game against the Patriots, so he needs to continue to do that if the Saints are going to have an opportunity to score touchdowns in the red zone. They did a better job of that against the Patriots and the Vikings. They're still trying to get Armstead back. Not sure if we have any idea whether he's going to come back this week or not. Keep in mind, the last 4 times that these two teams have played have been decided by 5 points or less, including the last 3 games decided by 3 points in each game. And in those last 4 games, in this the last 2 years that these two teams have played, the Saints have covered all 4 games, even though they've only won once. So that tells you that there've been a lot of close games the last 2 years with these two teams. And anytime you get that situation, because I don't like what I'm seeing with Cam Newton right now, I don't like the way this offense is going. They almost lost. If Taylor was able to hit the rookie Jones on that pass play inside the red zone under the 2-minute mark, I think it was, the Bills might have won the game. So I think the Saints at 0-2 with the Panthers at 2-0, this is a perfect opportunity for an upset. It's probably my best upset of the week.
It's there to be had. I mean, Greg Olson's out, and they struggled once he left the field. And Newton did have the cover too. It's funny how that works. The Bills the game went 1 if Jones makes that catch,
and the cover.
The Panthers probably have the cover locked up.
Yeah.
If Cam Newton hits the wide open receiver.
That's right. Yeah, that's the game should have been over. Yeah, game should have been over. Then it wasn't over, and then Carolina almost lost the game. So, yeah, again, it wasn't a very pretty game. And see, that's the thing, too. As we just said about matchups, Saints have played the Vikings with Bradford on the road, the Patriots at home. Is it a surprise they're 0-2? No. Who has Carolina played? San Francisco and Buffalo. So how do we know New Orleans isn't better than Carolina? We don't. We'll find out a little bit more about them on Sunday.
Yeah, Breeze, this is a great opportunity for Breeze to show that he does have some chemistry because he's facing an elite defense, and for Cam Newton to show that there's hope. And he'll be great in week 13, even if he's not perfect in week 3, because he's not facing.
And by the way, Benjamin, who's always hurt, has got the ankle injury. I'm assuming he's going to played after he got banged up.
Ugly looking.
Yeah, it's just look. I'm not going to say I would count on it. You never know how much it swells. But with Olsen out, with Benjamin banged up, Newton still banged up, doesn't have chemistry. They're relying on their defense with Short and Thomas Davis and Luke Kuechly and such. But look, when Carolina gave up a total of 6 points this year on defense, they faced Brian Hoyer and Tyrod Taylor. They did not face Drew Brees. Okay.
Is that a money line play for you?
Absolutely.
Because I would say it's a backdoor cover, possibly for me.
Yeah, in these situations, because the line is so enticing to just be, I'm not going to roll the dice and I'm just going to take the 6 and be happy about it. But it's so tempting for me to go with that money line in this situation. Now, if it was, again, just like I said, 0-2, 2-0, desperation, maybe Carolina's time for them to lose, all of that leads me to think, yes, if this is a perfect opportunity for the Saints to actually win this game. And I would definitely, what I'm going to do is forego the 6, go right for the money line. All right, let's go to Kansas City and the Chargers. This is on the West Coast, and I think, look, the Chargers, they can change head coaches, and it doesn't matter. I mean, it was almost like Mike McCoy was still the head coach last week. 19 seconds to go. The ball's at the 30. You got another play going. You have no timeouts left, but you got another play going. You don't have a rookie quarterback. You have Phillip Rivers. So what does the rookie head coach decide to do? He thinks it's in his best interest and the team's best interest to rely on a Sunbelt first-year NFL kicker, rookie, instead of Phillip Rivers, and rely that Phillip Rivers is going to find a way to get 5, 10, 20 yards closer, spike the ball if he has to within 19 seconds, which is more than enough time to spike the ball again, and that's what you get for it, a loss.
I'm going to be a little more lenient, only because I could see the scenario where Rivers completes a pass and they don't get there for whatever reason. Either the offensive line that's always banged up, somebody moves, whatnot. I don't mind him settling for the field goal, but I agree with you that he settles, and it's definitely something where he's in a situation that's going to happen to him all the time going forward, where especially the luck that he's had this season, where you put yourself in a position to win, you say, okay, I've done enough, and then the kicker lets you down.
That's
and it
what
happens
they
to
do.
everybody. It happened to Parcells.
That's what the coaches always do. I've said this for years. Coaches basically put themselves in that spot, the ones that don't go for it, and they say, you know what? I've done my job. It's not my fault. I'm a great coach. I put them in position. They're supposed to kick it. If it's missed, don't blame me. That's their attitude. And it shouldn't be, because we, as fans, we've seen thousands of more games and circumstances than these coaches have. They've seen their games mostly and their situations. We've seen thousands of situations where we see that this winds up coming back to kick you in the butt when you do something like that. By the way, the week before, they were in the same situation, and I think there was less time left on the clock, and he gave Phillip Rivers an opportunity to throw the ball. Rivers basically took one look over, saw the guy was covered, threw the ball out of bounds. Why couldn't you just do that again?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's an instance of not trusting Rivers. I think it's one of those deals where, with no timeouts, you've got that lack of a security blanket where somebody on your team, like, you're basically relying on everybody to line up properly to get to where they need to be. Again, I'm going to give him a little bit of a gray area because I promise you, he does what you wanted him to do. Which, again, I'm not saying this is the wrong decision, but he pulls that. They complete a pass, can't get lined up properly to kick the field goal. First question, why didn't you kick the field goal?
Well, and that's how if I was the coach, that's how I would have answered it. I would have said, well, you tell me, am I going to rely on a rookie kicker or Phillip Rivers? That's, and next question, please. But look, 10 seconds left, 12 seconds. Yeah. 19 seconds. See, the only thing that I would be with you on is penalty, moves you back 10 yards. Rivers somehow gets sacked, which I don't think he would have, because, again, he would just throw it away like he did the week before. But I definitely can see where 5-yard motion, 10-yard penalty. You don't want that. But that's also coaching against a bad thing happening instead of coaching to try to do something positive. And that's what happens when you're a rookie head coach, So, all right. Oh, by the way, the Chargers, get this, they've lost by 5 points total this year. Yeah, last year they lost 9 of 11 games by 1 score, 8 points or less, including 5 games last year by 4 points or less, and that included that opening day debacle at Kansas City that basically cost Mike McCoy his job on opening day. And 9 of 12 games they lost in 2015 by 1 score, with 5 by 5 or less, including 1 overtime. So this team and Phillip Rivers, they have been in a ton of close games down to the wire the last few years, and a lot of those times they haven't been able to pull it out. And that's why you keep thinking that maybe one of these years they're going to start winning these games, and already 2 games, and they lost them both. So
it's a shame. Levitard likes to say he's going to be a Hall of Famer. He's a loser going to the Hall of Fame because he always finds a way to lose games. And it is part of his greatness that he's good enough to propel these teams to be in these games when they have no business there, and can't get them over the hump. But I mean, look, no question, he's a Hall of Famer, and there's no question that he's a loser. He's cursed.
Well, look at Melvin Gordon. I mean, Gordon so far this year, 27 carries, 67 yards for a 2.5 average, got stonewalled last week, and then you've got the two of their starting linemen, who both are pretty bad guys anyway. So just imagine who the backups could be this week if Pulley or Barksdale doesn't play. And Wiggins is another crappy lineman that does play. So the line situation, I know they tried. They went out and drafted 2 guys, then one guy gets hurt. But They finally tried to do something about it, and it's still not working out. The offensive line is miserable. For the Chiefs, they beat the Chargers 6 straight times. They've covered them 4 out of the last 6 against the Chargers, and they're 3-0 straight up and against the spread. Their last 3 games playing the Chargers on the West Coast. So, all right, let's move.
Yeah, I mean, the Chiefs are definitely a rightful road favorite, but again, they were potentially exposed. There was places where they could have been exposed
last week
due to injuries and due to miscommunications. Eric Berry, remember, not there, so Phillip Rivers could take advantage of that.
Yeah, Chiefs are a 3-point road favorite. Definitely tempting to take the Chiefs for sure, but with Phillip Rivers, you just never know when he's going to break out. All right, Cincinnati and the Packers, and wow, the only thing about this game is injuries. Because the Packers have a ton of injuries. They got almost every key offensive line guy is banged up. Bulaga didn't play. Evans didn't play. Bakhtiari didn't play last week. Then Daniels gets hurt last week, their best defensive lineman. Nelson gets injured early. Cobb gets injured late. Perry didn't play, I don't believe, last week and may not play again this week. That's just a load of injuries. But even through all those injuries, the Bengals are just so bad right now, scoring 9 points this year, that there's no way the Bengals are going to win this game. The question is, with all those injuries, is it possible the Bengals cover? So I still got to take the Packers and give the 9. It's at home. But yeah, I mean, I guess it does scare me a little. It's a big number.
Yeah, it's a big number. I mean, Andy Dalton, it's been a rhythm thing. Because, whether you love Andy Dalton or hate him, and there's a lot of people that there's more people that hate him that don't.
True.
I'm in the middle. I respect his ability to get things done to a certain point. He's a middle of the road quarterback, but he's a middle of the road quarterback in the NFL is a positive at some point these days. So if he gets a rhythm, that's too much. That's too big a number.
Yeah, the problem is Eifert injured again.
Yeah.
So, and he's on his last year of his contract, so he's done. But then again, you never know with the Bengals. Bengals keep bringing guys back all the time.
They don't find another home.
Yeah, well, to tell you the truth, I think he'll probably be back with the Bengals. They don't care. They keep bringing back Marvin Lewis and Andy Dalton and giving him a big contract. They'll give Eifert a contract. That's the way they are. But yeah, he would find a home, no question. Michael Johnson still banged up. Burfict still suspended. First road game for the Bengals. And also, don't just blame Dalton because that offensive line has been awful. They truly miss Whitworth. I don't know why in this day and age with offensive line issues, why anybody would allow a solid offensive lineman to leave their team. But the Bengals did it, and they're paying for it. They fired their offensive coordinator. They think that's going to matter. They got an extra couple of days of prep with that move. I don't think it matters.
Well, Bill Lazor's history is to, kind of a short passing game, so maybe he'll help Dalton get into a rhythm. But yeah, it's a tough assignment. And again, a game that because of the line that's on it, it's hard to say with certainty which is the right side.
Packers, meanwhile, are going to play next Thursday, by the way, at home against the Bears. I don't know why they have this matchup like almost every year, and every year it's usually a Packer blowout. You would think that they're going to do this. Do it at Chicago. Make it interesting, even though I think they did that once. But anyway, the Bears are hosting Pittsburgh after another loss for the Bears. Glennon, I don't think Glennon's the problem right now. Sure, he's had some issues. But, hey, look, it's a new place. He doesn't have a whole lot of weapons. He's completing 67% of his passes. They've only scored 24 points. But, look, they played Atlanta. They go to Tampa. That's a tough start for the Bears. They're not a playoff team. Now they get the Steelers. Steelers, even though they haven't exactly offensively looked like anything we thought they were or that we believe they're going to, with Brown and Bryant and Bell all playing together for the first time in a while. We're not seeing that juiced up just yet, but they'll get there, we would think. 7.5-point favorite. It's very enticing to take the Steelers in that spot. But again, the Bears played Atlanta tough a couple of weeks ago at home.
They did. They're going to get Kyle Long back for the first time this season, so that's positive. But Josh Sitton, we've got to find out what his situation is entering the weekend, because he could just be getting some time off this week to nurse a rib injury. If he doesn't play, though, you've got offensive line issues facing a defensive line that's going to get to it back, and as Hayward playing at a high level, a defense that's playing at a high level. So, and if Glennon struggles again, which I think he will, I'm not a big Glennon fan.
Yeah.
I think that it's still probably in the best interest of the Bears to continue trotting him out there until you're positive that Trubisky is ready to be out there, because you could damage him playing him with subpar talent. They do get Marcus Wheaton back this week. Maybe there's a revenge factor there for the former Steeler. But Jordan Howard still nursing a shoulder injury, so you don't know what he'll bring to the table.
Yeah, and maybe Kendall Wright gets an opportunity to rejuvenate his career. A lot of expectations in Tennessee. It didn't work out. Now he's, I think, the number one receiver for the Bears with all their injuries.
Yeah.
So
I'd like to see the Steelers blow somebody out. Just blow them out of the water just because they're so good, because they are. I mean, I think you can say talent-wise, they're more talented than the Patriots, and you can say talent-wise that the Raiders are more talented than the Patriots. Patriots are just Patriots. But as far as talent on the field, we could have a whole conversation about Pittsburgh and Oakland.
And by the way, next week when they play Baltimore on the road, even though Flacco isn't Tom Brady, it's still that next week. I'll be saying this, even though the Steelers, and more than likely they win, even though the Steelers are 3-0, they faced Kaiser, Keenum, and Glennon. So they get Flacco next week on the road. That'll be their first big test, even if they beat the Bears on Sunday. But that's what you're supposed to do: win the games that you're supposed to win, and that's what the Steelers are doing right now.
Let's hope that the handful of Ravens that are currently in one piece
true.
come back from London and in the same condition.
Yeah, because they've got that 9:30 start. Now that's like an internet game. Like, is that the only place that's available? I was looking on TV for the game. I didn't.
They did it last year, and I think they showed it on NFL Network too. They did the live streaming where everybody it was available on the internet, because I remember streaming it for a little while before watching NFL Network. I'm not don't hold me to it, because I don't know if they've changed it. The last year it was similar.
All right. Well, the defense. Look, now I said I'm disappointed with one of my sleepers, New Orleans. I'm not disappointed with this sleeper. Baltimore's looking real good right now because of that defense that I mentioned. I thought this was going to be their best defense in a while, and so far it's showing that way. They've given up just 10 points, 8 interceptions, 8 sacks, and 2 forced fumble recoveries in the 2 games that they played. But you know what? Even though they're playing the Jags, and that's going to be a win, because I don't think there's any doubt that that'll be a win. Bortles came back down to life with 3 turnovers last week in their blowout loss at home against the Titans. The whole team came back down to earth. And keep in mind, the Jags have covered 3 straight, because they played the Ravens 3 straight years. So even though they've lost 2 out of those 3 against Baltimore. But what a huge loss for Marshall Yanda. For a team that has offensive line issues, to lose Marshall Yanda it's a terrible break for them.
That's I mean, for your sleeper status, that's almost a deal breaker.
It is. I agree.
And it's a shame, because this is a team that it's been well constructed, but just injury after injury, year after year.
All right. Also, Denver at Buffalo, and first road game for Denver. They go West Coast to East Coast. Bowles, the rookie's out. He seemed to be getting off to a good start. The offensive line paving the way for C.J. Anderson, Jamal Charles, who have combined for 285 yards rushing so far this season. That helps Simeon out. Look, I watched Simeon have a huge game early on last season against the Bengals, and that was his best game all year. Look, Simeon had a good game, 4 touchdowns against the Cowboys. He's not a great player, so people need to stop getting carried away with that. He's a good player that has he's basically a backup, an above-average backup in the NFL that has everything that you need when you're a backup to succeed: the offensive line, the running game, and the receivers, and it's working out for him so far. And they get to play the Bills this week, and the Bills aren't exactly a great team. The defense is doing a good job under Sean McDermott the first year, but the offense is doing nothing, and now they got up against that Denver defense.
Yeah, I mean, your weekly Cordy Glenn update. He's at practice today.
Okay.
So that helps, obviously. My little monster.
Go ahead.
But the fact is, look, we'll see about Marcel Darius. It's a tough situation for the Broncos, just because they've gotten to be in their elite home field advantage, probably number 2 behind Seattle.
True.
And now you got to beat a team that will play you tough, will challenge you. I saw Shady McCoy said, obviously watching what they did to Dallas, daunting, but there'll be opportunities, and he felt the Bills missed some opportunities. It's going to come down to whether Taylor takes advantage of the chances that he does take, because for the most part, he's in game management mode most of the way, as he should be with those receivers. So, should be interesting.
All right, and I'm going to go ahead and let you go. Anything on those other 2 games, the ones that nobody will be watching, Miami Jets and Cleveland and the Colts?
Miami Jets is a trap line, but you can't at all take the 6. Can you?
Take the 6? No. You definitely give the 6. Jets are not winning a game under Josh McCown. They're not doing it. The team, there's no life there. They know what's going on until Bryce Petty takes over, and then everybody finds out whether or not he's got anything. As far as a starting quarterback in the NFL, this team is going to do nothing. So, would you do anything? Would you be inspired by a 38-year-old quarterback who's like 2-26 in his last 28 starts, and you have a coach who's a clueless head coach? I wouldn't. I'd have no inspiration to play.
Is this it for Bowles?
Absolutely. I don't know if he'll get fired
before
not
this
the
year,
season.
This game.
No, because I don't think Maccagnan. I don't even know if he's got control to do that. They were both brought in together, which is another stupid organizational move. I don't know how much control Maccagnan has over Bowles. He should, especially if Bowles is saying, no, I want to start McCown. If Maccagnan's smart, he'll go start Petty. And if you don't start Petty, you're fired. I don't know if Maccagnan – I don't know. It all depends on if Maccagnan feels his job is safe, whether or not he fires Bowles now or at the end of the season, and that's a question I just don't have the answer to.
Gotcha.
All right, Tony, I appreciate it. And, again, your NFL Essentials will be out late tonight, tomorrow at Vegas Insider?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. You'll be able to read them on Friday morning no matter where you are in the United States.
Awesome. Looking forward to talking NFL Week 4 with you next week.
All right. Appreciate it, Greg. Take care.
Thank you. All right, that's Tony Mejia. And by the way, yeah, the Dolphins are a 6-point favorite in that game. And they are, by the way, the favorite in the Jet-Dolphin series is 4-0, straight up and against the spread the last 4. So that bodes well if you want to take the Dolphins, which I will. And also for the final game, Cleveland a 1.5-point favorite at Indianapolis. And I'm going to take the Browns in that one. I mean, look, I think I've said this in the preseason. I've said it since, I think I pretty much have talked okay about them. Completely understanding that you never know what you're going to get from Kaiser each week. But really more because of Greg Williams has got the defense playing better than I've seen Cleveland's defense play in a long time. I think we've seen that over the first few weeks of the season. Even though they've lost those games, they haven't allowed Baltimore or Pittsburgh to do anything big against them. It's just that when you have a rookie quarterback, you can't score a lot of points, and you're going to need your defense to be even better sometimes. And Cleveland's defense is doing just enough of what they can do to keep this team in games, but the offense just can't do anything. And Kaiser had a terrible game. He had 3 picks, and that's what's going to happen. 66%, 222, 1 touchdown, 1 pick Pittsburgh, then follows it up with 48%, 182, 0, 3 interceptions. That's what happens when you're a rookie quarterback. So does he have the better game this week? Well, chances are if he's going to have a better week, it's going to happen against the Colts, that's for sure. Meanwhile, keep an eye on Higgins, who had the big game last week coming off the practice squad. We talked about that yesterday on the show with Dan Schonk and Jamal Murphy about how Higgins had a tremendous college career at Colorado State. And this is a guy that is a for-real guy. So I don't know exactly what he can do with a rookie quarterback, though. But with Coleman out for the year, Higgins is going to get a lot of opportunities, especially since Kenny Britt's gotten off to a slow start so far with the Browns. And the Colts, look, Jacoby Brissett, Deshaun Kaiser. I'd rather have Kaiser. Sorry, but I would. I don't know why anybody would take Brissett. I don't even care if he's got a couple of years of experience over Kaiser or a year experience over Kaiser in the pros. Why? That doesn't matter. Kaiser's the better quarterback right now. Browns have a better defense right now. Okay, they're on the road. I don't know what that means. They're only given 1. So, I'll take the Browns. Look, I'm not telling you to go to the bank and pull out the mortgage and bet the Browns. I'm just saying I'll take the Browns. Okay, so in the books for, what is it, the 21st of September? Matter of fact, I think it's the first day of fall. I think so, which is really nice. Well, for me, I'm a fall, winter kind of guy. And it's not just because of football. Okay, so we are going to, what are we doing? As far as, basically what I want to let everybody know is of course, we'll be back again next Thursday, every Thursday, with Tony Mejia, talking, again, previewing the week in the NFL on the Ourlads Football Radio Network. You can, by the way, in case you don't know this, we have our YouTube and iTunes pages under Prime Sports Network. You can also follow us on Twitter at PrimeSN. And don't forget to check out the Ourlads.com website for the best NFL and college football depth charts in the business. Our next show on this network is going to be tomorrow on the Ourlads Football Radio Network. That is when we talk fantasy football with Jamal Murphy. Ourlads.com, Chief Fantasy Analyst. The next show on the Prime Sports Radio Network is coming up a little bit later on. When we talk a little bit of tennis later on PSN. So we'll see you tomorrow. By the way, 2 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. That's our new time for the fantasy show. 2 o'clock every Friday. So for Tony Mahee, I'm Greg DePalma. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.